All right, let's talk about electricity in the sleep lab. Uh, so, due to the nature of this course, talking about a lot of difficult concepts at once, you'll hear things more than once and in more than one way. And hopefully, doing that will make all of this a little easier to learn and digest. The main problem you will frequently encounter in the sleep lab is troubleshooting or diagnosing and fixing an electrical problem. These have many different causes, from power failures, frayed or damaged power cords, and equipment malfunctions. But if you have basic electrical experience and safety knowledge, you can be a great benefit to yourself and your patients. There are three components to measuring electricity. The first we'll discuss here is current. It speaks about the flow or the movement of an electrical charge. I like to think of it as a flowing river. There aren't just thousands of gallons of water sitting still, they are flowing at a certain rate. The higher the current, the likelier you are to be harmed. Perception of electrical ranges from what you can feel it to a small tingling, like when you touch the terminals of a 9-volt battery to your tongue. It could go to tissue damage or burns, cardiac arrest, or even death. Perception of electrical ranges. What perception means, can you sense it? Current is the measurement of flow of electricity over time, and we express those in amps or amperes. The flow of biological potentials is measured on the order of microamps, or millionths of amps, of an amp. Electricity always follows the path of least resistance. That's why you get hit by lightning if you stand in the middle of a golf course with no trees. You're the closest conductive thing, and you're connected to ground, so the lightning hits your head and goes through to your feet. The second component in electricity is voltage. In our river analogy, it would be how much water are we talking about in gallons. It can be described as the difference in electrical potential between 2 points, also known as electrical tension. We measure voltage with volts, and biological potentials are measured on the magnitude of microvolts, or millionths of volts. So again, current is needed to really hurt someone, and the presentation I'm adapting this from, as well as many other people online, say that current is what kills you, period. But if that's true, and voltage isn't going to kill you like, high voltage, then why do we need to be careful around something that is high voltage? Electricity is still something we don't know everything about. The flow of electrons varies, depends on who you talk to and what device is taking it on. The important thing to remember is current and high voltage equals death. Voltage is regulated by resistance, and that's not a bad thing. We use resistors to assist in voltage regulation in our devices. Unwanted resistance is what we want to stay away from, where artifact becomes an issue. As the voltage increases, the risk to the user increases. There are professionals that check electronic equipment all day, and they have a sticker book and a log book logging all the equipment used in the lab, from the amplifiers to just the table fans and the computers and all the jack boxes. All this equipment should also be labeled as extra low voltage, high voltage, or extra high voltage. Both high and extra high voltage equipment pose a risk of electrical shock to the users. A yellow equilateral triangle with the point up superimposed behind a bold exclamation point is the international symbol for danger of electric shock. The third element of measuring electricity is resistance, which is how much opposing force is going against an electrical current. Again, resistors are used to reduce voltage, or at least reduce or resist the path of voltage, but you want that resistance value to be included in the overall electrical equation. If you're working on equipment, rubber gloves are a great way to prevent electrical shock. Anytime you're dealing with potential electrical shocks, use tools like screwdrivers that are made with a fiberglass or rubber handle or another non-conductive material. Same goes with ladders, which a lot of people don't realize until it's too late. When we talk about the resistances against the biopotential signals we want in the polysomnogram, we consider it to be impedance. Resistance is the measure of opposition of DC current, and because we humans operate on AC power, we refer to that resistance as impedance. We want to reduce the impedances of our electrodes to be low and relatively equal between all the electrodes. Specifically, less than but close to 5 kiloohms of impedance is fine. We usually accomplish this by scrubbing or abrading the skin just enough. Some people you have to scrub a little harder, like bald guys that have the slick head, or dirty people. Some of the things that can cause a high impedance include debris on the patient's skin or electrode, an obstruction between the skin or electrode, fray or tear in the housing of the lead wires or head box, frays or poor connection and cabling to the PSG machine itself. In my experience, when dealing with a middle-aged man with a slick bald head, you have to really scrub. There's something about that skin that's probably been subjected to elements and the sun, and makes it incredibly difficult to abrade. When we talk about electricity in the body, we're talking about biopotentials. Electrical potentials found in a biological organism. Every cell has a membrane with a transmembrane potential, which means there is a difference in the voltage on the inside of the cell versus the outside of the cell. A resting neuron has the transmembrane potential of about 60 to 80 microvolts, whereas the interior of the cell is negative and the exterior of the cell is negative and the exterior is positive. Polarity refers to an electrical signal's positivity or negativity. An electrical signal is never purely positive or negative on its own. You have to compare the voltage with another potential to figure out if it's negative or positive. All modern electrical outlets take 3 wires. One is green, which is for the ground wire, white, which is neutral, and black or red, which means a hot or live wire. Touch this wire to complete the circuit and get a nasty surprise. Seriously, don't touch it. If you haven't noticed, on modern outlets, the left parallel slot is bigger than the right. This is to allow only the hot wire of a plug, the bigger or longer piece, into the correct slot. You may notice some plugs, like some iPhone chargers, don't have the larger plate for the larger slot, and this means the charger is not a polarized plug, which requires one-way flow. The best option would to always have a 3-pronged ground plug, in which you don't have an option but to plug it in correctly, But a lot of different appliances don't have a ground wire prong, like a vacuum cleaner or an iPhone charger, because the majority of the casing for the electrical components is made of a material that is a sufficient insulator against electrical flow to the user. That doesn't make it totally safe, but that's why. Insulators are materials that are good at keeping the energy and heat on the wire instead of flowing out. Some wires need more or different insulation than others. Insulation is not the same thing as shielding. Insulation is more of a safety issue. Shielding could be more for signal integrity. Alright, that's it for this one. If you have any questions, give me a holler.